You have 1 hour to gather your personal items. Then you and your 3 will leave this house. You should be grateful I'm allowing even that. You can't throw children into a storm. Amara said. Watch me. Margaret nodded to the guards. In year 2000 in Atlanta, on a brand new day like this, Amara dropped the skillet, grease spitting across the stove, her hand flying to her chest. The triplets, Aaliyah, Nia, and Zuri, froze with spoons halfway to their mouths. Upstairs, the thud of heavy feet slammed against wood. Then silence, crushing and wrong. Daniel? Her voice cracked. She didn't wait for an answer. Her slippers slid across the kitchen floor as she rushed for the stairs, her girls stumbling after her. By the time she reached the bedroom door, the world had already shifted. Daniel lay sprawled across the carpet, one hand clutching the bedpost as if it had betrayed him. His face was pale, lips ashen, a sheen of sweat on his brow. His breath rattled, broken, fighting for air that wouldn't stay. Daddy! Nia shrieked. Back, girls, back! Amara pulled them against her hip, pushing them toward the hall. Her mind screamed at her body to move faster. Phone. 911, towels. Water. But her legs felt like lead. She dropped to her knees beside him, pressing trembling fingers against his throat. The pulse was there, weak but running. Stay with me, baby. Please. Just stay. But before I continue, I want you to do me a favor: hit that subscribe button, give a like, and drop your country in the comments. I will love to know where you are watching from. Thank you. So let's get started. She fumbled for her phone, dialed with slippery hands. The operator's voice blurred into background noise as the sirens became the only sound she clung to. Minutes later, the house was a storm. Paramedics flooding in, neighbors craning from porches, triplets crying into each other's arms. Amara held the edge of the doorway as they lifted Daniel onto a stretcher. His hand twitched once, reaching for hers, before slipping away under the weight of machines and oxygen masks. She tried to follow. She made it as far as the ambulance before the shadow blocked her path. Margaret Townsend. Daniel's mother. Her hair was silver, pulled back so tight it seemed to stretch her face. Her eyes, cold as steel, held no trace of panic. No trace of love. She raised one hand like a barrier. Not you, she said. Amara blinked, heat flaring in her chest. What do you mean, not me? That's my husband. Those are my children's. Not now. He needs peace. Not noise. Not your dramatics. Margaret's lips barely moved, but her voice sliced clean. She turned to the paramedics, her hand already on Daniel's wrist. I'm his mother. I'll ride with him. The doors slammed before Amara's protests could turn into words. The sirens wailed, fading into distance, leaving her standing barefoot on the driveway with 3 crying children clinging to her robe. The neighbors whispered. Some shook their heads, some pulled their curtains shut. And in the middle of it, Amara knew something had shifted permanently. The hospital was worse. Hours stretched like years. She begged the front desk for updates, pressed against locked doors, tried to bribe nurses who turned away with tight mouths. Family only, they said. As though she wasn't. As though the rings on her hand meant nothing. Through a narrow window she caught flashes, Margaret's stiff figure pacing Daniel's room, her back blocking the glass, her hand holding papers, signing something, passing them across the bed. Doctors moved like shadows, quick and silent. No one looked her way. When she tried again, Margaret appeared in the doorway. Her voice didn't rise, but her presence silenced even the beeping machines. You need to stop this scene. Go home. I'm not leaving. He's my husband. Margaret's smile was thin, cruel. Was. The word didn't make sense. Not then. Not yet. 2 days later, it did. They gathered in the hallway, lights buzzing overhead, walls too white for mourning. The triplets clutched each other's hands, their faces blotchy from crying. Amara's body was hollow, wrung out from sleepless nights on plastic chairs. Margaret stepped forward, dry-eyed, voice steady. He's gone. No tears. No hesitation. Just 3 words that shattered a world. Amara gasped, stumbling back as if the words had struck her. The girls wailed, a sound so piercing even the nurses turned away. Let us see him, Amara begged. No, Margaret's tone was final. The coffin is sealed. It's done. Within hours, the box was lowered into red Georgia earth, sealed shut before wife or children could whisper goodbye. Rain fell in sheets, drowning the sobs. Margaret stood stiff at the head, black umbrella shielding her perfectly, eyes never once meeting Amara's. It was over. Too fast, too cruel. But Amara's gut twisted. Something was wrong. Something didn't fit. And when they returned to the mansion that night, when the servants lowered their eyes and Margaret's footsteps echoed down the halls like a ruler returned to her throne, Amara realized this was not grief. It was conquest. The triplets cried themselves to sleep. Amara sat in the kitchen alone, the walls pressing in, her mind spinning. Her husband was gone. The coffin was sealed. But the shadow of Margaret's smile lingered. She whispered to herself, voice shaking, something's not right. Upstairs, a drawer slid open in Margaret's room. Papers shuffled. A phone call murmured. Plans moved in silence. Amara stood in the kitchen with the triplets huddled behind her. Their eyes were swollen from a night that would not end. A pot of grits waited on low heat, untouched. The house smelled like butter and lemon cleaner, the kind of smell that said we'll keep going anyway. The drill stopped. A key turned that wasn't hers. Margaret stepped into view, black suit pressed, pearls sharp against her throat. A maintenance man trailed her, eyes on his shoes. 2 private security guards flanked the hall like coat racks with guns. What are you doing? Amara's voice was steady by force. Changing locks. Margaret didn't look at her. Estate protocol. This is my home. Correction. Margaret nodded to the maintenance man. The Thornfield home. And you, dear, are trespassing on my patience. Aaliyah pressed her face into Amara's hip. Zuri stared at the guards. Nia clenched a small plastic whistle, the kind from a birthday party, tight in her fist. She blew once, a thin sound, then stopped when the taller guard frowned. Amara swallowed the heat rising in her throat. The girls need breakfast. Their clothes are upstairs. Your things will be inventoried, Margaret said. You'll receive what the law permits. My husband. Don't. The pearl line at Margaret's throat didn't move. He's gone. The word thudded like a gavel. A phone vibrated against wood. Margaret answered without stepping away. Yes. Empty the office. The safe too. A pause. No, today. She hung up, eyes sweeping the family photos on the wall. Her gaze stopped on a frame with a hairline crack across the glass, a shot from the girl's last birthday, pink cupcakes, Daniel midlaugh, frosting on his beard. She tilted her head, then turned away. Keep the hall clear, she told the guards. I expect my guests this afternoon. Guests? Amara asked. Family matters. The guards leaned into the doorway. The maintenance man fitted a new deadbolt on the office door, the one Daniel never locked. The soft click felt like a door closing inside Amara's chest. She pulled the girls closer. "Go put on your shoes," she whispered. "We're stepping out for air." They moved as one, 3 small bodies, braid beads clicking, socks sliding. Amara counted backpack straps and tiny jackets like a soldier counting gear. She reached for the wall hook where Daniel's ring of keys used to hang. It was gone. Only a pale oval on the paint remained, a ghost of brass. She closed her hand around emptiness. The absence felt heavy. "Mom?" Zuri's voice was a pebble in a still pond. "We're okay," Amara said. She touched the crack in the birthday frame, then left it where it hung. "Shoes. Now." They slipped out the back door into cool air. The yard was wet from a night shower, the grass holding beads of water like tiny mirrors. Somewhere down Glenwood, a MARTA train moaned over tracks. The whistle stitched itself into the morning, quiet but certain. Amara walked the girls to the sidewalk. She could feel the house at her back. Watchful. Closing in. "Waffle House?" Nia asked, tentative. Amara nodded. The neon sign down the block hummed like a promise, warm and greasy and real. Waffle House. They ate in a booth by the window. The cook sang along to Al Green under his breath. A waitress called everybody baby and meant it. The triplets split a chocolate chip waffle in 3 careful slices like a peace treaty. Aaliyah traced circles in syrup. Zuri stared at the parking lot puddles. Nia set her whistle on a napkin like a little guard. Amara sipped coffee that tasted like a second chance and planned. Bank. Lawyer. Pastor. Anybody who knew how to hold a line when a tide came in. A text buzzed from an unknown number, First Federal. 10:30 a.m. meeting confirmed. Bring ID. She exhaled. She hadn't made the call yet. Daniel must have said something before. Her eyes burned. She blinked it back. "Finish up, girls. We've got things to do." "Are we going home after?" Aaliyah asked. Amara watched the rain start again, thin, then heavier, pushing gray across the parking lot. She didn't lie. "We'll see." First Federal smelled like carpet glue and mint pens. The lobby held 4 people and a plant in a pail pot. Screens flickered with mortgage rates no one understood. "Mrs. Thornfield?" a woman asked, appearing from a frosted door. She wore a navy blazer and a face that practiced compassion. "I'm Helena." "We spoke, well, we texted." "Yes." Amara squared her shoulders. The girls stayed close, rain damp in their braids. "In here." Helena led them to a small conference room with a window facing the teller line. She closed the door softly. "I'm sorry for your loss." "Thank you." The words felt like stones in Amara's mouth. "I need to see my husband's accounts. And the mortgage, the house, anything with his name. I want to make sure the girls are protected." Helena's smile tightened. "Of course. I do need to verify some things. Do you have your marriage license? IDs? The children's birth certificates?" "Yes." Amara slid a folder onto the table. Each paper had been smoothed, handled, kissed in prayer. Helena scanned them, nodding. Then she typed. Her eyes flicked across the screen, once, twice. The 3rd time, her mouth flattened. "What is it?" Amara asked. Helena hesitated, then turned the monitor slightly away, as if the numbers could cut. "There have been changes. An authorized party added to certain accounts." "Who?" "Margaret Townsend." Amara felt the room tilt a degree. When? 2 days ago. Helena's voice softened. There's also a temporary hold placed on withdrawals. A pending request to transfer ownership of the primary checking and a scheduled meeting about the house title. She can't. She has a notarized document. I can't speak to its validity. I can only see that it's in the system. My husband never, he would never. Helena folded her hands. Mrs. Thornfield, I cannot offer legal advice. But I can say this, if you have counsel, bring them. And if there are protections on file. Clauses in wills or trusts, those can override a request like this. Protections? Yes. Some clients build in triggers. Conditions that activate under certain circumstances. Helena lowered her voice. It's not common, but it's not rare either. A flicker of something moved through Amara, like light under a closed door. Triggers like what? I couldn't say specifically. Helena slid a card across the table. What I can do is set an internal hold on any transfers for 72 hours. It's not much. But it's a pause. Amara took the card. Do it. Helena nodded. Done. A rap on the glass made them both turn. Margaret was on the other side of the window, eyes level, lips pressed into a line that belonged on a knife. She didn't enter. She didn't need to. She tapped her watch, once, and walked away. Zuri grabbed Amara's hand. Mom, I don't like her. She doesn't like us, Nia said quietly. Aaliyah held up the cracked photo from Amara's folder, a small print she'd tucked away. Daddy would have fixed this. Daddy will, the sentence broke on its own. Amara took a breath, smoothed the photo, pressed its broken line flat. We're going to fix everything. Do you hear me? Everything. Helena stood. I'll walk you out. They stepped into the lobby. Margaret waited in a chair by the door, legs crossed, posture like a courtroom. She didn't rise. Her eyes slid over the girls as if they were items on a shelf. Banking errand? She asked. Protecting what's ours, Amara said. Margaret's smile didn't reach her eyes. Language matters. Ours suggests you were something you never were. His wife. His companion, Margaret said. In every family there are misunderstandings. Is that what you call locking a wife out of a hospital room? I call it mercy. Margaret stood now. He needed quiet. You bring noise. I bring love. Margaret waved a hand, dismissing air itself. This conversation bores me. Be back at the house by 2. We have guests. What guests? You'll see. She swept through the door, the weather outside making a halo of rain around her. Helena touched Amara's sleeve. Get a lawyer, she whispered. Today. I will. Also, this is none of my business, but if your husband ever mentioned a contingency, some clause, dig for it. Thank you. Helena's eyes softened. Good luck. The rain came harder by afternoon, a steady drumming on gutters and porch roofs all down the block. The front door yawned open. Inside, the house smelled different. Starch and strangers. The foyer rug had been rolled away, the wood underneath bare and pale. On the entry table, the cracked photo frame lay face down like a body. Mom? Zuri whispered. We're fine, Amara said, though the words felt like a ladder missing a rung. Margaret waited in the living room. She had moved Daniel's armchair 6 inches to the left. The shift was small, but it pulled the whole room off-center. A woman sat beside her, smooth bun, soft makeup, a dress the color of tea. A boy leaned against her knee, 6 or 7, hair combed into careful lines. He clutched a toy truck the way Nia clutched her whistle. "Ah," Margaret said. "Good. You're here. Amara, meet Savannah. And this is Jacob." Savannah rose gracefully. She gave a small nod, eyes shy, hands folded. "Hello." "Hello," Amara said, the word dry in her mouth. "Who are you?" Savannah looked at Margaret, then back. I'll explain," Margaret cut in. "This is Daniel's legal wife. And his son." The room bent. A noise came from Amara that didn't sound like her. "No." "Yes," Margaret said. She lifted a manila folder from the coffee table and fanned its contents like a dealer at a cheap table. Marriage certificate. Photos. Birth certificate. Records. The triplets, while charming, are not legal heirs. The girls shrank into Amara. "Mom?" Aaliyah's voice was paper thin. "Stay with me," Amara said, eyes on Margaret. "Where did you find her?" Savannah's face flushed. "I am not found." Quiet," Margaret snapped. Then, to Amara, "You have 1 hour to gather your personal items. Then you and your 3 will leave this house. You should be grateful I'm allowing even that." "You can't throw children into a storm," Amara said. "Even you." "Watch me." Margaret nodded to the guards. "Start with the bedrooms. Suitcases only." The guards moved. The girls' feet scuffed as they backed toward the hall. Amara put one arm across them and with the other picked up the cracked photo frame from the table. The glass cut her thumb. She didn't flinch. "You'll regret this," she said softly. Margaret laughed once, a sound with no joy in it. "I don't regret. I decide." "Daniel decided," Amara said. "You were never the one." "Weren't I?" Margaret's eyes glinted. "Who raised him? Who kept him fed, schooled, safe? You think a ring erases that?" "Raising isn't owning," Amara said. "You forgot that part." Rain roared against the windows. The front door opened and closed with the rhythm of people carrying weight. Suitcases thumped down the stairs. Shoes. Coats. A pink backpack with unicorns. A small stuffed bear with one button eye. "Stop," Amara said. But the storm inside the house did not stop. They were on the porch 20 minutes later under a sky that looked like it wanted to break. Suitcases lined the steps. The triplets' clothes lay in a burst along the walkway where a case had popped. Socks and tiny jeans and a purple tutu they argued over last week. Water soaked everything. The little truck Jacob held made a grinding sound as he rolled it back and forth. A guard pushed the last bag into Amara's arms. "Time. Where will we go?" Zuri asked. "Home," Amara said. She meant the part of the world that knew them by name, neighbors, church, Waffle House waitresses, the train that waved every dusk. She meant anywhere that wasn't here. She took one step into the rain. Then a hand caught her wrist, light, quick. Old fingers, warm. "Madam," whispered the housemaid, the one who had been there through fevers and birthdays, who tucked notes into lunchboxes that said "Drink water, be kind." Her name, Evelyn, sat on her tongue like a prayer. Evelyn slipped a thin envelope into Amara's palm. "Keep this. For the children." "What is it?" "Don't open it here." Evelyn's eyes flicked back to the door. "Go." Margaret's voice cut from inside. "Evelyn?" The maid dropped her hand and stepped back into shadow. They walked down the driveway. Past the shiny SUVs. Past the mailbox with their names still on it, black letters holding against wet. Neighbors watched through blinds and lace. A dog barked 2 houses over and then went silent, as if sensing a rule had been broken. Amara led the girls to the sidewalk. They stopped under a pecan tree that didn't help much. She slid the envelope under her shirt to keep it dry. "Mom," Aaliyah said, voice shaking. "I'm cold." "I know, baby." Amara crouched, wrapped all 3 of them in her arms, the suitcases a ring around them. "We're going to Miss Johnson's porch. Then we'll call Uncle Ray. We'll call Pastor Ken. We'll..." Her hands trembled. She gripped harder until they stilled. "Open it," Nia whispered, pointing at the envelope hidden under cloth. "Not here. Please." Amara looked back at the house. At the door. At the window where a face moved and then vanished. She took the envelope out, cupped it in her palm like a small bird. The flap wasn't glued. She slid a finger under and lifted. Inside were 2 things, a bank certificate printed on thick paper with a number she did not recognize, and a small black flash drive. The kind Daniel joked about losing and then always found in his jeans. Her breath caught. She stared at the drive. It stared back in matte silence. "Mom?" Zuri asked. "I think your father left us something." A car horn bleated down the block. Thunder sat on the roof of the world and refused to move. Amara slipped the drive into her pocket. The bank paper she folded and tucked into a zippered pouch inside the suitcase. She wiped rain from her face with the back of her hand and stood up straighter. "Miss Johnson," she said. "Now." They cut across puddles, shoes slapping, bags dragging. Miss Johnson swung her door open at the first knock. "Get in here," she shouted over the storm. "Get in this house now." The warmth hit like a hug. The hallway smelled like cinnamon and furniture polish. A clock ticked somewhere steady and sane. "In the den," Miss Johnson said, guiding them. "Towels in the basket. I'll make cocoa. Then we call whoever you need." "Thank you," Amara said, and meant it with her whole life. They wrapped in towels and shared a couch cushion, the 3 heads lined up like little birds on a wire. Miss Johnson set cocoa on coasters and a plate of saltines and cheddar the way aunties do when there's nothing else but love. "Now," she said softly, sitting across from them. "Tell me." Amara told. As much as words could do. She left out the parts that were just screaming. "You're staying here tonight," Miss Johnson said when she finished. No room for objection. "I'll call Deacon Harris about a lawyer. He helped my niece last spring." "Thank you," Amara said again. It kept being the only phrase available. Her phone buzzed. A text from Helena, 72-hour hold in place. "If he left you any bank instruments, study them. Look for a clause." A clause. She pulled the flash drive from her pocket and held it up. It looked like nothing. A cheap fragment of plastic. But her chest knew better. "Miss Johnson," she said. "Do you have a laptop?" "Do I have a, girl, please?" Miss Johnson was already up. She returned with a battered HP and a power cord that had seen some things. Passwords, God will do it. Capitals where they belong. Amara smiled, small and true. He will. She plugged the drive in. The laptop made a soft chime, like a spoon tapping a glass to call for quiet. A folder popped open on the desktop, 4A, and the girls. Her hands shook as she clicked. A single video file waited. "If you're seeing this." Her breath turned shallow. The triplets leaned in until their foreheads almost touched the screen. Miss Johnson crossed herself as if she'd been raised Catholic and forgotten until right now. Amara clicked. Static for a beat. Then the picture steadied. Daniel's face filled the screen, thin, tired, eyes clear as daybreak. He sat in a hospital room. Machines hummed out of frame. His voice, when it came, carried gravel and care in equal parts. "If you're watching this," he said, "I need you to take care of our daughters first. Then listen. The woman you know as my mother is not what she seems. She has plans. She will hurt you to get what she wants." He swallowed, eyes wet but steady. "Ask for clause 17. The words hung in the den like a command and a key. Nia's whistle slid off her lap and hit the rug with a small sound. Amara froze, heart hammering. Clause 17. A number and a gate. Miss Johnson leaned in, whispering like the room had ears. "What's clause 17? Amara didn't blink. "I don't know yet." On screen, Daniel reached for the camera. His hand shook. He steadied it. Clause 17. Remember. The video flickered. Rain hit the windows harder, 1,000 fingers drumming for time. This was more than a clip on a drive. This was a line thrown across a dark river. A piece of a plan meant to carry them to shore. In a world that felt like a movie nobody asked to star in, this moment wrote itself with heat. The laptop screen dimmed for a second and brightened again, chasing power. On the video, Daniel leaned closer, voice dropping. "The banker knows what it means. Go to First Federal, downtown branch, ask for their fiduciary desk, and use the words exactly, per trust instruction, activate clause 17 for minor beneficiaries. They'll try to stall you. Do not leave without a stamped docket." And Amara, he paused, closed his eyes, opened them. "Protect the children." The recording froze there for a heartbeat, his face half in shadow, half in light, before the next scene loaded. The cursor spun. The room held its breath. Outside, a car slowed in front of Miss Johnson's house. Tires on wet asphalt. A door shut. Another. Miss Johnson glanced at the window and frowned. "You expecting somebody?" "No." Footsteps on the porch. A firm knock. 3 beats. A pause. 3 again. The rhythm of someone who believes doors exist to be opened for them. Amara closed the laptop with her palm flat like a promise. She slid the drive out and tucked it into the tiny pocket inside her jeans. Her thumb touched the cut from the broken photo frame and came away clean. The blood had clotted. The hurt had not. The knock came again. Louder. Miss Johnson stood, chin up, the stance of an auntie with a switch in the closet and phone numbers that make problems vanish. "I got it." She reached the door and called through it. "Who is it?" "Fulton County Sheriff," a voice answered. "Service of process." The girls sank into the couch. Aaliyah's lips trembled. Zuri put a hand over her heart. Nia lifted her whistle like a tiny sword and didn't blow. "Don't open," Amara whispered. Miss Johnson's eyes flicked to the window, to Amara, back to the door. She put one hand on the knob and didn't turn it. "This is a decent block," she said softly. "We handle things proper. But we don't roll over." The voice outside spoke again, paper rustling. "Mrs. Thornfield? You've been named." Named. A word like a stamp. Like a trap. Amara reached for the laptop, opened it an inch, hit play without looking. Daniel's voice rose from the speakers, steady as a hand on her back. "If anyone comes with papers before you activate the clause, say nothing. Accept nothing. Call the banker, then the lawyer." Another knock. Miss Johnson called through the wood, "Slide it under." Silence. Then papers slipped over the threshold like eels, edges curling from damp. Miss Johnson kept the chain on, watched the porch until the footsteps receded, then locked everything twice. She brought the papers to the den, held them like something that could bite. Amara didn't touch them yet. She stared at the drive in her hand, at the TV light on the wall, at her girls pressed close, 3 points of warmth in a cold day. She breathed in and felt the shape of something forming, fear, yes, but also bone. She looked at Miss Johnson. "Tomorrow," she said, voice low. "We go to First Federal. We say the words. We get the stamp." Miss Johnson nodded once. "Good." The laptop screen flickered, caught itself, and ran. On it, Daniel looked past the camera as if he could see all the rooms they might stand in, all the doors they might face. His mouth shaped one last line. "Clause 17, he said. "Don't let them take what belongs to them." The screen went black. The room stayed lit by rain and a thin seam of sun breaking under the cloud line like a promise kept small, not to scare it away. Amara slid the drive into her pocket, tightened her grip, and felt the cut on her thumb again. It didn't hurt now. It reminded. She looked at the papers on the coffee table and finally reached. The top page read petition in heavy ink. She didn't turn it. Not yet. Her voice found itself, rough and firm. "We move at dawn." Dawn came gray and wet. Miss Johnson slid eggs onto plates, pushed toast across the table, and kept the kettle humming. The triplets ate in a row, knees touching, eyes on me like I could pull a door out of thin air. "This is a cinematic story now," Miss Johnson said, steady, not joking. "You push scene by scene till the light shows." I nodded. This dramatic script had a clear objective: get to First Federal, say the line, force Clause 17 open. Then protect the girls. That's the whole powerful story I cared about. I checked the flash drive in my pocket. Still there. The sheriff's papers sat on the coffee table, face down. I hadn't read them yet. The clock said 7:12. We had time before the branch filled. "Shoes," I said. "Backpacks. Hair ties." "Yes, ma'am," Miss Johnson said, winking at the girls like they were soldiers and she was the general. "My Buick is gassed." We stepped onto the porch. The air smelled like wet pine and cold metal. Miss Johnson drove like Sunday, not Friday. No panic. No jerks. That SUV turned twice where we turned, then kept going. I let the thought sit and didn't feed it. "Say it for me," Miss Johnson said at the light. "Per trust instruction," I said, "activate Clause 17 for minor beneficiaries. I do not leave without a stamped docket." Again. I said it again. The train called somewhere east. The light changed. We rolled. First Federal at opening felt like a waiting room before a storm. Helena met us at the door like she'd been standing there since 6 a.m. navy blazer again. Hair pinned with care. "You came," she said, relief slipping through her polish. "You told me to. This way." She led fast, not rude, down a hall that smelled like carpet cleaner and printer heat. Into a small conference room with glass half frosted, people's shadows on the other side moving like fish in a tank. I flagged this to our fiduciary desk. "Manager's on the way. Before we start, 2 things." She lowered her voice. 1, say the phrase exactly. 2, do not hand over that drive unless compliance requests of you. You keep custody. Got it. A knock. A man stepped in, 50s, careful eyes, tie with small squares. "I'm Ortiz." Fiduciary services. He shook my hand, then looked at the girls and smiled like a human being. You can sit anywhere. You want water? We're fine, I said. He sat, opened a leather folder, clicked a pen. I'm sorry for your loss. I looked at the table. We're here to activate a clause. Okay. He didn't push. What clause? Per trust instruction, I said, every word clean, activate clause 17 for minor beneficiaries. I do not leave without a stamped docket. Ortiz did not blink. He glanced at Helena. She met his eyes and gave the smallest nod that said, not a bluff. Hold on, he said softly. He pulled a thick binder from the bottom shelf of a credenza, set it down, flipped tabs. His finger stopped halfway in. Clause 17 appears on certain trusts as a protective trigger. We'll need to verify either the instrument number or the title. I slid the bank certificate from the envelope Evelyn had given me. Thick paper. A number like a small river, 337-54-217. Ortiz took it and matched it to something in the binder. Okay, he said. This is a Thornfield Minor Trust, established 3 years ago. Beneficiaries named, Aaliyah Thornfield, Nia Thornfield, and Zuri Thornfield. He looked at the girls when he said their names, like he was calling attendance. They sat up taller without meaning to. Grantor, Daniel Thornfield. My breath stuttered. He kept reading. Clause 17. Upon credible threat to beneficiary welfare or attempt by non-guardian party to assume control of grantor estate under contested conditions, the bank shall, he ran a finger down. Shall freeze all pending transfers, suspend any non-guardian access, and open a living expense subaccount for the minors, controlled by the named guardian of record, subject to court confirmation within 72 hours. Guardian of record? I asked. He turned the page. Spouse, Amara Monroe Thornfield. Helena let out a breath that sounded like she'd been holding it all week. A shadow moved on the glass. A second later, the door opened without a knock. Heels. Air perfume. Margaret stepped in like she had a deed to oxygen. Behind her, a man with a hard mouth and a gray suit. And Savannah, eyes down, Jacob at her knee, small fingers clutching that toy truck so tight his knuckles went white. Good morning, Margaret said like the sun had asked permission to rise. We'll need to stop whatever this is. Ortiz didn't stand. Ma'am, this room is in use. This room is my son's. Rooms don't work like that, he said, even, not mean. The gray suit lawyer stepped forward. I'm Pierce. Counsel. We'll be reviewing any trust actions. Our clients contest guardian status. Per trust instruction, I said again, not giving an inch, activate clause 17 for minor beneficiaries. I am the guardian of record. I do not leave without a stamped docket. Margaret's lip curled. You hear that rehearsed line? Ortiz closed the binder. Ma'am, you're not a party to this activation. Please wait outside. Pierce held up a document. Emergency petition is on file. The court will enjoin any disbursement. On file where? Helena asked. Fulton, he said. Time? I asked. 9 o'clock, he said smoothly. Chambers. Helena checked the wall clock, 8:41. Ortiz looked from me to the lawyer to Margaret. He pressed a button on the phone. Compliance, this is Ortiz, fiduciary. Clause 17 activation request on 337-54-217. Contest present. Please join. He released, then to Pierce, until enjoined, we follow instrument instructions. Margaret stepped closer, both hands flat on the table like a judge. She is not family. Say that again, I said. She and those girls, she said, eyes cutting to the triplets, have no standing. I stood. My voice did not rise. You're done talking to them like that. Pierce lifted a palm. Let's not escalate. I'm not escalating, I said. I'm drawing a line. The phone chimed. A new voice came through, bright and quick. Compliance here, this isn't Chem. What's the file? Thornfield Minor Trust, Ortiz said. Clause 17. Beneficiaries present with guardian of record. Adverse party present claiming competing spouse and minor. Copy, Chem said. Any recent transfers? Attempted transfer by Margaret Townsend 2 days ago, Helena said. Hold applied. Thank you. Video instruction? I touched my pocket. Yes. Will you represent its contents without handing custody? Yes. Proceed. I set the laptop on the table, opened the clip, and held the screen so only our side could see. Daniel's face filled the room again, thin, clear-eyed, mouth finding steady. When he said the words, "Ask for Clause 17, even the lawyer leaned in without meaning to. When he added the line about the banker and the docket, Chem's tone shifted a notch. Grant her instruction captured, she said. Ortiz, I'm authorizing freeze on all non-guardian actions and immediate opening of living expense subaccount for minor beneficiaries. $10,000 initial, replenishable upon court confirmation. Issue stamped docket. Also flag for safe deposit access, box 217, key retrieval. Margaret slammed her palm on the table. Absolutely not. Chem didn't raise her voice. Ma'am, please leave the room. You can't. Bank policy. Now. For 1 second I thought Margaret might shatter glass by glaring at it. Then she smiled that thin weapon smile and stepped back. Enjoy your little win, she said. We'll see you in court in, she checked Pierce's watch, not hers. 13 minutes. Savannah kept her eyes on the carpet. Jacob's toy truck made a soft grind against her shoe. The guards from the lobby appeared in the hall like the room had called them. Margaret didn't need them. She turned and left. Pierce lingered. If you spend a cent, we'll claw it back with interest. Ortiz clicked his pen. I'll note your charm in the file. Pierce left without answering. The room breathed again. Good, Chem said in our ears. Ortiz, print and stamp. Helena, walk them to vault for the box. Mrs. Thornfield, keep that drive in your possession. And, unrelated to policy, please get a lawyer in the next hour. I will, I said. The girls watched my mouth when I said it. They weren't watching the banker or the rules. They were watching the part where we either stood or fell. Ortiz slid a form across the table. The top read clause activation docket in black block type. He stamped it, dated it, and handed me a copy. Keep this dry, he said. You'll need it in court. Helena touched my elbow. Vault. We moved. Past the teller line. Down a hall colder than the rest. A door 10 inches thick rolled open. Inside, 1,000 tiny doors waited like a neighborhood of secrets. The vault clerk looked at my ID, looked at the docket, then held up a small brass key hanging from a tag stamped 217. This yours now, she said. Where's the other key? I asked. Grantor retained it, she said. Or left it inside. That happens sometimes. I took the key. It felt warm even though it was cold. The girls leaned in together as I slid it into the slot and turned. The box slid out with a whisper. Inside, a thin notebook, a smaller sealed envelope, and a single spare house key on a ring. Daniel's key ring. The same shape as the pale oval on our kitchen wall where his keys used to hang. A sound left me that no one else needed to hear. "Take the lot," Helena said softly. "We have to go if you're making that hearing." I tucked the notebook and envelope into my bag, slid the key ring onto my own, and closed the box. The clerk nodded like church. Back in the conference room, Ortiz handed me a debit card tied to the miner's subaccount. Groceries. Hotels. Lawyers. Use it for them. Do not move cash to any other account. Do not lend it. If a stranger asks to see it, no. I understand. He lowered his voice. The freeze will hold 72 hours. After that, the court decides. Be ready. We will, I said. Helena walked us to the front. At the door she stopped. We stepped into the rain. The courthouse sat like a blunt jaw against the sky. We hustled under the overhang, shook water from jackets, and followed signs that all looked the same until we found the right hallway. "Children can wait here," a clerk said, pointing to a bright room with crayons and a TV tuned to a cartoon with the sound low. "We keep them out of the heavy stuff when we can." Zuri clung to my leg. "We want to stay with you." "You'll be right here," I said, kneeling so my face met their faces. "Miss Johnson will sit with you and keep count by 3. Miss Johnson sat like stone with a smile. We entered chambers. Small room. Judge without a robe. 2 chairs for counsel, 1 table for whoever had the nerve to sit at it. Margaret sat already on the other side. Pierce beside her. Savannah and Jacob behind, quiet, eyes glued to their own knees. "Emergency petition," the judge said, eyes sweeping the sheet. "Relief requested, temporary control of estate operations, freeze of disputed trust, removal of minor children from marital home due to instability." "Your Honor," Pierce began. The judge raised a finger. "She hasn't even Saturday." I sat. "You are?" "Amara Thornfield." "Counsel?" "Working on it." "I have a docket from the bank in identification of a trust activation," I said, sliding the stamped page forward. "I object to any freeze that harms my daughters." The judge read fast. He did not hide his thoughts. His mouth twitched once. "Clause 17, he said, almost to himself. "Haven't seen one in months." He looked up. "Who's the banker?" "Ortiz," I said. "Compliance isn't chem. First Federal downtown." He scribbled a note. "Okay. Counsel?" Pierce leaned in. "Your Honor, my client is the decedent's legal mother. She brings forward the true spouse and child," he gestured toward Savannah and Jacob, "and requests emergency control due to the risk that Mrs. Monroe, who is not legally wed, will dissipate assets." I didn't look at Savannah. "Not yet." The judge did. "Ma'am," he said to her, "do you have a marriage certificate?" Savannah nodded, hands shaking. Pierce handed it over. The judge scanned, frowned, held it to the light, then set it down like it had burned him a little. "We'll get to that," he said. "Mrs. Thornfield, do you have anything else today besides the bank docket?" I set the flash drive on the table. A video message from my husband instructing me to activate Clause 17 for our daughters. He made it in the hospital. The judge tapped the drive with a pen. "Counsel will object to chain of custody. But for emergency relief I don't need to hear it yet." He looked at the clock. "Here's what we're doing. The bank's freeze stands. The minor's subaccount remains open for living expenses. No transfers by any other party. We set a hearing in 2 weeks. DNA testing ordered for all minors claiming heirship. For today, no eviction, no removal of children. Anyone who puts a suitcase on a porch in the rain will answer to me. A breath left me like air out of a tire, slow and hot. Pierce started, "Your Honor." "Stop." The judge's voice could cut rope. "And stop showing me paper you printed in your car." He glanced at Savannah, softened. "Ma'am, if you are who counsel says you are, the truth will stand up straight when we test it. Until then, no one moves these children like furniture." Margaret stood without permission. "He is not her husband." The judge didn't look at her. "Sit down." She sat because rooms like this still had rules. "We're adjourned," he said, scribbling dates. "Mrs. Thornfield, see the clerk for DNA scheduling. Counsel, file your exhibits by Wednesday." "Wayo. This is impossible. How can the triplets be doubted and denied in court? Until DNA is done. Is there more to this? Does Mrs. Margaret knows what the courthouse didn't know? No one can say, let both drive into the part 2 together. There is more to this than the way you thought. Who is the real father of this triplet children? Subscribe now and stick to this channel because part 2 drops soon. When the reveal is about to be revealed, then what happened? I will like to read you comment in the comments box. Thanks so much, bye.